Welcome back to Think Tank Tuesday here on the morning show right here on eTv. Now, renowned physicist Albert Einstein once said, the hardest thing to understand in the world is the income tax. Now, TMS family, if even Einstein finds it confusing, we've definitely got to call in the experts. So tax season is upon us, and in this edition of Know Your Rights, we're going to delve into some frequently asked questions and some of the legalities surrounding tax. And feel free to send in your questions and your voice notes as well, because today, joining us on our Cielo couches this morning to shed some light on this master topic that is going on at the moment is tax specialist at Latita Africa, Thomas Lobban. Thomas, good morning. Welcome to the morning show.
Thanks, good to be here.
Now, Thomas, we know that tax is so important with regards to our citizenship, and we understand its complexities, but it can also be a bit daunting. You know, we were saying earlier that every year it's almost as if you need to retrain yourself and relearn all of these tax matters. So can you start by telling us just exactly how tax works in South Africa and how it is calculated?
Well, of course. So one of the underlying principles around tax is you enjoy the fruits of a country, the benefits of living here, our roads, our healthcare, etc. You render unto Caesar what Caesar is due. Of course, South Africa taxes its taxpayers on the income that they earn, and that revenue is used to run the country. Of course, of course. What different types of tax are there? What are we dealing with? So there are many. You know, you have income tax, capital gains tax as a subset. You have VAT, you have customs and excise. Yeah. But of course, given that filing season has just opened, I think the topic of the day will be income tax, which is of course the tax on what you earn. Absolutely. And we hear it being referred to as, or us as taxpayers being referred to as non-compliant and compliant. What is the essential difference between the two? Well, of course. Sometimes when you're a tax practitioner, it's just a difference between a green flag and a literal red flag. But if you're up to date with your taxes, you're all paid up with SARS, you're on good terms or good standing with SARS, you are compliant. Non-compliance is where you should have paid your taxes over, or you haven't submitted a return that you should. In some way you are not completely square with SARS, then you are non-compliant. So you are a red flag, and we definitely don't want to be that. Talking about the red flags and non-compliance, you know, there's been much discussion around South Africans being somewhat reluctant to pay taxes due to things like service delivery issues and corruption and mismanagement of funds. But what are the legal consequences of being non-compliant or not submitting your return when it is due? That's a very good question, and indeed something that we see almost every day at Latita Africa. Honestly, I'm reluctant to say this because it's very scary to hear, but you can in some cases go to prison if you're non-compliant, especially if you commit what's called intentional tax evasion. You hide your income from SARS, you deliberately don't comply. But in most cases you can be penalized, you'll be subject to penalties, and of course ultimately when you do need to pay your tax over, there's interest on that. Of course. And that interest can really build up over time. And we definitely don't want that. Now, when we're talking about income tax, who is actually liable to pay income tax? Is there a particular threshold that you need to be earning per month? Is it age-wise? Who is liable for income tax? Of course. So ostensibly anybody can be subject to income tax. The big question here is whether, if you're independently trading, you've made a profit in the first place. Yes. But otherwise, if you're employed, 92,000 Rand and some change, that's your threshold. So if you're at around the 92,000 Rand a year mark, then you should definitely be looking at your taxes and confirming whether you should pay. If you're well under that, then you're probably safe. Okay, perfect. And speaking of, you know, a lot of South Africans upon leaving school will take up, you know, temporary or casual jobs as well. Are they liable to pay tax? If I'm working a temporary job or it's very casual, what are my tax obligations in that respect? Of course. So usually if you're working a very casual job, you won't be bringing in 92,000 Rand a year, especially as a student. We wish. I wish I was bringing in that much as a student. It's a blessing and a curse, you know, if you do. But the type of job you do or the frequency with which you work is not really too relevant for SARS as much as what you earn. Okay. So again, we return to that minimum threshold. of 92.
Perfect. And are there people that are completely exempt from paying tax? They don't have to pay tax at all?
Ooh, it's a very interesting question. It's rare that as a person you're exempt. So if you have exempt status as a taxpayer, which is very specific in the Income Tax Act that governs this, or you're earning only exempt types of income, then you obviously wouldn't pay tax on that. But that's not to say that you don't still need to file a tax return.
Yes.
Because ultimately what that is you're making disclosures to SARS. You're declaring to SARS this and that, and SARS may still need you to prove that. So whether you're actually paying tax or not, you might still need to interact with the Revenue Service during the year.
And of course, all of us do anyway through things like value-added tax, VAT, on the products that we buy anyway.
Of course, if it's not direct, it's indirect, and it'll get you anyway.
So we can't get away from tax no matter how much we tried. So thank you so much. Yes, exactly. Thank you so much for sharing those insights with us, Thomas. I want to move the conversation now to PAYE. What is PAYE? How does it work? Pay as you earn, right?
Pay as you earn. It's actually a little bit more of a colloquial term. In the Income Tax Act, it's employees' tax.
Okay.
So if you earn remuneration from an employer, they should be registering for PAYE, withholding the tax portion from your income. They look at your year and what you earn. They withhold it obviously in each month proportionally, and they pay that over to SARS on your behalf. You get pay slips over the year, one would hope. In most cases, you certainly should get an IRP5, Employees Tax Certificate. Nowadays, that's preloaded on e-filing for you. And
I loved when that happened. It made my life so much easier.
Well, it's again, at Latita Africa, we see the mistakes. So it's a blessing and a curse once again. But that's then used for your tax return. And your employer might need to correct something along the way. And it's important why, even if you're auto-assessed in the year, if SARS files your return for you, you still need to check things like that.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Thomas. And our conversation with Thomas continues after the break. We are going to continue our conversation around all things PAYE and what happens when you owe SARS money. Don't forget, TMS family, you can send through your voice note if you have any questions for Thomas Lobban here on The Morning Show. Stay with us.